Well, hello friends, it's Johnny Flyer here, and I am back with a bit of a throwback. This is the 1950 GP7. It's a 370. And this is the one that, one of the first videos I really started to do to post to talk about American Flyer restoration and repair. This one, as you might remember, was pretty rusted, had a lot of issues with it, and the paint had started to flake off at the bottom here, and most of the decals were gone on the right side. And I won't play around with it too much because I'm going to do a test, but you know, good bit of rust down here on the wheels and the on our frames. And then, of course, the paint had pretty much come completely off of this and had a good attempt at trying to repaint it. It had been done in silver. I did it back in black because I wanted to try to come back to what looked a little bit more like original. Now, it's still missing our front and back toe frames. I will put those on there at a later date, but this will be the last video for this particular train, because what I'm going to do today is I've got some decals that have finally come in, and I'm going to put those on there. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of what I had done to this train. But first, what we've done, and this is probably the most momentous part, is this train is now fully functional. Okay, so back in front of us, and that was probably the coolest part, was being able to take this thing from a complete and total rust bucket, and you should see some pictures snapping up here, to where it is now. So it has been, I kept the original wiring because when I tested it, all of the original wire was good. And really where the issue started was where it started to connect to our engine down the front. And as you may recall, this is a front drive engine. The back is a dummy set of wheels. And our front drive had rusted through pretty good. And most of these wheels had a significant amount of rust. Some of them had corroded to the point where they were frozen shut. And so we had to go back and fix that. Still some shining and repairing that probably needs to be done to these wheels over time. But that, I think, is going to come out with the maintenance of this. The frame, or the shell, had most of the paint worn off of the bottom to the point where most of this was showing the bare white plastic kind of along the bottom there. So I had some options that I could deal with. Now I could try to take it back to the white plastic, to get all the way down, and then repaint it. What I opted to do was just take most of what had been corroded off the bottom there. I primed it all, and then I went with a slightly grayer color than what was OEM, because frankly I kind of like it. I liked it, the industrial look. And so now I'm going to put some decals on it. I got those decals in from a supplier that I go to. But like I mentioned, I went and I repainted our horns and our rails up here black for this part. And what I'll hit up next is I'm going to put some decals on the front and the rear. These had come completely off in the back. Another thing I found I had to do was our little lights. Up here you might see them right about there. I actually had to take the front side there and I had to shine them up a little bit because they had broken off. And so what I ended up doing, instead of ordering new lights, you can see they're kind of poking out there. Compare that with the back, which was in pretty good shape. Well, what let me see, how's that? What I figured out to do is a little bit of polishing with the Dremel tool, and I was able to get them pretty good there. And you could probably see on the test run that I'm pretty happy with where everything went. Now, obviously, the gray color has its own change there, but as I like how it looks when it's put back on our train. I'll put that right here. Try not to knock my screws off there. And put those on. And as you see, I did a little bit of a repaint on our back frames here because they had the bottom part had really rusted and corroded, or had corroded pretty badly. And so I took that back down and I primed those and repainted those. But everything there is looking really nice. And this is pretty much ready to go. I just need to reattach it, but I'm going to wait until after I do our decals here. Now, as you may remember from our 312 adventure, some of the decals did show a bit of an edge. So this decal is designed to go all along the bottom here. I believe that's the American Flyer in blue and yellow. What I want to try to avoid, I'm going to cut it as close as I can so that I avoid that that white line that went along the decals, and then I'm going to put a top coat, a clear coat on top of it just to protect it a little bit and see how that works. But for the most part, this is a done engine, so I'm going to go ahead and put some decals on. There's some other probably better videos out there on how to put decals together and put them on your train. I'm going to go ahead and just do this to close this project out. I'll show you a picture of what this train looks like when it is 100% complete. Well, 99% complete, because again, I have to go order the front and rear rails so it can tow. It will be link coupler engines. Since I am a knuckle coupler guy, I think what I'm going to probably end up doing is eventually converting the back end of this to a knuckle coupler. But for now, in the sake of trying to get a project that I started with early, with my recordings completely done, I'm going to knock this completely out. And so next bit of the video you're going to see should be a completely done body on a completely done and repainted and restored and fully functioning GP7. In fact, I may just go ahead and run this on the big train. Okay, so this is the finished project, and really just ecstatic with how the whole thing kind of came out there. Try to give you a good 360 degree or 180-ish view. This is a 99.9% restored GP7. I did get a set of decals, which I am mostly pleased with. These were actually, I guess, adhesive backed as opposed to dry or wet adhesive. And I don't know if you can tell, the lines just don't look as nice on these if you really get up close. However, from a distance and with the lighting I've got in this room, it looks fantastic. And so I'm just going to hope that you're all kind of going to go with me on it, because I'm pretty pleased with at least how it came out cosmetically. And you know, I had originally bought this with the intent of just sort of restoring it and then handing it off. You know, as much work and as much time that has gone into making this engine work, I think I'm just going to hang on to it and turn it into part of my collection. And partially because I've done a lot of sort of restoration paint and stripped down work, so you know, the bare parts of this thing are still the bare parts, or the basic parts, but this is essentially a completely top to bottom repainted, restored engine. So having said that, I'm going to give her a run around the track here, since it will be part of the big table. And as you may notice, there's some parts and pieces that are starting to show up on the table. This is becoming a rather busy place to be. This is going to become a nice little fixture, I think. And I'm liking the fact that most of my permanent fixtures here have my hand in them and restoring them and putting them back into place. In fact, you may recognize 312 back there as a project. So it's kind of nice to have things that are operator quality that got that way because I helped them get there. And again, you know, look, this was of the diesels, this was probably the first one I really tried to restore, and I got the results that I got that you see here. Rock it up a little bit so you can maybe see it against the light. Oh, that's a much better view. And you can just see, I mean, it really did come out very well. And I put a little, couple coats of a clear coat on there that was a matte finish clear coat, and the paint I used was a Testors gray. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it was a Testors gray that got a little dark when I first used it, but between the little bit of silver, a little bit of white mixed in there, and then the clear coat really helped bring it together. So it looks fairly close to OEM. It's not 100% if you hold it up to another GP7. I don't have one right now, but a little bit darker than the original colors, but close enough to fit on the stable, and certainly good enough to look pretty good here. So I'm going to go ahead and give her a run, and And so there you have it. That is a completely restored GP7 from December of 1950. And man, what a treat it was. And so I'm sorry that it took me as long as it did to get this one done, but I wanted to get this one right since it was my first diesel attempt. And I think you'll agree that the wait was worth the results. Really just looks like a great engine, and it certainly performs very well around the track, so I'm looking forward to adding this to the greater collection and moving on to the next one. So thanks for watching, everybody.